Welcome to Regal Cinemas.
To understand a culture's deepest fears and obsessions, look no further than its popular films. Like dreams, movies can reveal truths about their audiences before those same audiences are aware of them themselves. And if this ceremony was any indication, middle-class America at the turn of the 21st century was having a full-on existential crisis.
The Oscar goes to American Beauty.
My name is Lester Burnham. And in a way, I'm dead already.
The Best Picture winner of 1999 was less a lament of the dullness of middle-class life in America than it was a cry for help, as its protagonist spends the movie's entire runtime tearing down the seemingly picture-perfect life, the wife, the career, the white picket fence, that he suddenly feels imprisoned by. Lester begins to fantasize about a teenager, which awakens an even greater lust inside of him, one for youth itself. And so he tries to go back in time, in a sense. He gets a job flipping burgers, buys his dream car, and picks up other old habits from his childhood, all in an attempt to recapture what life was like when he was young, before he got so spun up on first world problems like the empty accumulation of stuff.
Lester, you're gonna spill beer on the couch.
So what? It's just a couch.
This is a $4,000 sofa, upholstered in Italian silk. This is not just a couch.
It's just a couch!
But American Beauty wasn't alone in sounding an alarm that despite the stable economy and lack of global conflict at the time, things were not as good as they seemed in the late 90s. A rash of movies echoed similar sentiments of discontentment at work.
Human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles staring at computer screens all day.
A lack of greater purpose.
The middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
And a general feeling that there must be more to life than what we see or have been led to believe we're capable of. But where was all this anxiety coming from? One explanation was the Y2K technology scare.
People were terrified the world was going to end.
This is not one of the summer movies where you can close your eyes during the scary parts.
Regardless of the reason, the end of the millennium had people taking stock of how far humanity had come and of what revelations might still be in store.
December 31st, 1999. The end of a century. The end of a millennium. The beginning of the end.
Apocalypse movies and religious thrillers had a resurgence in the late 1990s, and many of them wrestled with where and how faith fit in the modern world.
God doesn't live here anymore. He's grown weary of your superficial faith. He's turned a deaf ear to your lip service prayers. He has abandoned you. His favorites to the whim of judgment. Hypocrites, charlatans, prepare to taste God's wrath.
He's an absentee landlord. Worship that? Never.
Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, is that it?
Who in their right mind, Kevin, could possibly deny the 20th century was entirely mine? All of it, Kevin! All of it. Mine. I'm peeking, Kevin. It's my time now.
This period of spiritual unrest continued until one sunny morning in September 2001 when suddenly everything changed.
Today we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
9/11 redefined so much for Americans, including their relationship with the status quo. The contempt they once felt for their mundane routines was replaced now with a simmering uncertainty over who to blame, what would happen next, and if their homeland was ever actually as safe as they thought it was. And those effects trickled down into films. Filmmakers began wrestling with a newfound sense of vulnerability in their work, a sort of fear of outsiders, from both outside of the country and outside of our world. Note the use of a handheld camera here, and how its style, broadcast on an old TV set, mirrors that of so much 9/11 news coverage. Loaded associations like these remind us how the all-too-recent real-life invasion was televised. They make these kinds of moments feel almost too familiar. And tapping into that collective trauma is a technique that would be taken even further in alien invasion films to come. The alien movies of the 90s just didn't have this same tone. They were either hopeful,
so beautiful,
or goofy, or starred Will Smith.
Welcome to Earth. Sorry.
But darkness defined a lot of what we saw on screen in the early 2000s, as if the country itself had been infected with rage. Surrounded by so much grief and danger, it's no wonder then that movie-going audiences soon began to look for hope in a higher power, or more specifically, superpowers.
You shall not pass!
Beginning with movies like Peter Jackson's The Fellowship of the Ring in 2001, fantasy films and comic book adaptations began to dominate the box office soon after 9/11. The top movies of the day were no longer historical epics, grown-up dramas, or even rom-coms, all of which held spots in the top 20 highest-grossing films of the 90s. Instead, action flicks and adventure films accounted for every single one of the 20 highest-grossing titles of the 2000s. In addition to Disney and Pixar films for kids, which always make an appearance. Our hunger for escapism was growing, and studios and critics alike took note.
It's a clean sweep. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Barry M. Osborne, Peter Jackson, and Tran Walsh producers.
In 2004, the final Lord of the Rings film made history by becoming the first movie ever to win 11 out of 11 award nominations, including Best Picture.
Oh, this is just unbelievable, and I'm so honored, touched, and relieved that the Academy and the members of the Academy that have supported us have seen past the trolls and the wizards and the hobbits and are recognizing fantasy this year. Fantasy's an F word that hopefully the 5-second delay won't do anything with.
But maybe it was because of the trolls and wizards, and not in spite of them, that this series connected so deeply with people. The message at the core of this movie's success, anyway, was clear. We as a culture wanted to believe in magic again. And for the next 2 decades, superheroes would draw crowds to theaters like never before. And why not? These films not only promoted the idea that powerful protectors were watching over us, but they also suggested that we too were stronger than we realized, whether we were superpowered or not.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble, and finally allows us to die with pride.
Some of these heroes were even motivated by their grief.
Don't be afraid.
Others by their guilt. But all were at least a little bit angry. how could we not relate to that? These fantasy worlds felt far away but familiar, and they affirmed something that we needed to hear at the time, and maybe something we had always wanted to believe.
How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow, even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going. Because they were holding on to something. What are we holding on to, Sam? But there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it's worth fighting for.
By the end of the first decade of the new millennium, audiences' tastes had shifted 180 degrees. Where we used to obsess over internal conflicts in our popular films, things like feeling lost or lonely or unfulfilled, 9/11 gave us a reason to rally together again, to face down an external foe.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
Our true enemies, it turned out, weren't our boring jobs or predictable routines. They were out there. And we battled them in the safety of theaters and through screens, where villains always make their intentions known, and when even the most uncompromising alien of all invades. And he wins.
I am inevitable.
I don't want to go, sir, please. Please, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
We know that it's never too late to go back in time.
The stones are in the past. We could go back, we could get them.
We can snap our own fingers, we can bring everybody back.
To rewrite the past and make all those wrong things that happened to us right.
Assemble.